Welcome to Building the Canadian Dreams. For years, I've always loved to feature new immigrants to Canada, or even some young people that have had a dream. They've come to the country, they've had nothing like my grandparents came here with absolutely zero, and they built a life. And I see these hard-working new immigrants that come here, whether it be from, say, Iran or Afghanistan or India. And boy, do they work hard. And over time, they've bought a home, they have a family. And I'm going, I want to honor these people for building their dreams. But we have a problem today. When I stepped into the job market, the governments were not in debt too much. We had a $1.5 billion debt in BC, 1970. And today we're pushing $100 billion, and it'll be 150 is the projection in the next 1 or 2 years. So listen to me. That's not up by 10. That's crazy, 100 times bigger. This is nuts. So I want you to picture this. The governments have gone completely nuts by spending more than they have. And they have nothing. If you reach into your wallet or your purse and you pull out the Visa card, they have in your name, it's kind of invisible, but it says unlimited, an unlimited Visa card. The government is spending like stupid. So our share of the debt, whether it be 30,000 or 50,000 or 80,000 coming up per taxpayer, and if you go translate that to the third that pay the majority of the taxes, what are we starting to talk? $150,000 debt per person borrowed by this government? So many people have a hard time paying off a $20,000 student loan. So now you wonder why there's 33 or 38 new taxes in BC in the last few years. It's because they have to pay the debt of the huge amount of money they borrowed. Listen, we're up to 25% of the gross national product of the entire domestic product of the entire province. 25% of everything that's made is now owed in debt. Put it in this perspective. Let's say you own a home for $1 million and you're having a hard time making the payments. You borrow another $1 million on the house. And then a few years later, you've spent all of that money and lived very high lifestyle. And now you borrow another $1 million. Pretty soon you own $5 million on your $1 million home. Folks, this is not sustainable. The governments have gone nuts. And it started a lot with the pandemic. When the pandemic came along, the governments learned it's an emergency. We get to reach into the pocketbooks of every taxpayer and pull out unlimited amount of money for, CAN Pass and vaccinations and cameras and security. And when the pandemic's over, you would think they would stop doing that. But they have been emboldened to go, wow, we can just keep taking more money out of your purse and your wallet. And then to get elected, all they have to do is say, I'll give you $1,000 if you vote for me. And that works. I saw Gavin Newsom give a $900 check just weeks before his recall election. He ended up with 61.9% of the vote. He bought, I'm going to say 10% of the vote, 10% by giving everybody a $900 check. That wins elections. But it's not their money. But he won the election. He bribed people to get reelected with a very high vote, 61.9%. That's pretty stinking good when he's being recalled for one of the toughest on business and schools in the entire country. So I'm stepping out. You guys, I've been in public service, we'll call it, for my career. I sell real estate. So I learned way back in the 80s, if I take a position on abortion, half of the people don't like me. Take another position on capital punishment, the other half don't like me. I got nobody left. So as a person serving the public, I've had to be self-censored. I can never say my opinion. Well, we're such an emergency here that gloves are off. I'm calling everybody to arms here. So we had 106,000 soldiers die, 17-year-olds, or 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds, all went to war to what? To save mom and dad and their family and the country. They died. They actually gave up their lives for freedoms. And here we are being choked, just choked with debt. And everybody is becoming a slave to the government, an actual slave. We're being taxed. We're in slavery. Is anybody listening here? So, checks and balances. Government needs to be accountable. When you vote for somebody, you should be saying, listen, I'm giving you my Visa card, but it's got a limit on it. You can't go over your budget. You're not doing a $9 billion over budget debt, or maybe as they say, a 20, because real estate is as slow as it's been in 30, since 1991, 33 years. Wow, is it slow out there. So they're not going to get all their taxes from real estate sales. So we are talking a government that has gone way out of control and not accountable. On top of that, they're not transparent. Would any one of us like to know how many doctors and nurses got fired because they didn't take the COVID vaccine? We don't know that. Why don't we know that? We've hired these people to serve us, yet they don't tell us anything. They keep us quiet and they just add another whole bunch of taxes on us and increase our gasoline. So let's talk about the carbon tax. In 2008, British Columbia was the first place in North America to bring in the carbon tax. All parties voted for it. Yay, we're going to save the world. So what's happened? Last year was a $2.6 billion cost to British Columbians. And if you figure 1/3 pay no tax, 1/3 pay less than their share, their tax receivers, and 1/3 pay the majority, that's people over $75,000, income are paying 80 to 90% of all the taxes. That's a lot of money. Where did it go? What did we do for it? Well, first of all, let's just examine the actual cost. When you buy gasoline in BC, 57 cents tax on each liter of gas. So when you see gasoline at $1.55, realize it really should be under $1. That's how much tax you're paying. Now those taxes get transferred all the way through everything we do. So they say the chicken farmers, the average farmer will be paying $150 extra carbon tax in the year 2030. That's just 6 years from now. That $150,000 goes all the way through the entire food processing chain. So we're talking heating the barns. Listen, we live in a cold country. We need to heat our chickens. We need to heat our animals. We need to dry our grains with big dryers. These use natural gas or propane, and they're getting taxed dramatically. Now, it would be wonderful to say that we made a difference. So where did all that $2.6 billion go? I can't think of anywhere that we actually reduced the carbon footprint. Like, how are we pulling carbon out of the air? We have the boreal forest, which is one of the biggest consumers of CO2 in the world. So we actually draw out the CO2. Our plants actually eat it. But at the end of the day, what did happen is that we shipped most of our clean energy jobs off to China. And now China, what are they doing? They're building 2 cold electrical generator plants per week. Their consumption has gone up 355% in production of CO2 since the year 2000. 24 years, they're up 355%. And that is mostly to do with the coal generators. So where did they get their coal from? It's British Columbia. We're up 50% on our coal shipments from 2017. 50%. We're supplying the coal to China to make the CO2. Are you listening to this oxymoron? We're trying to save the world, and yet we are the ones producing all the CO2 increases in the last 10, 20 years, folks. We're the ones increasing it. This is not working. Now listen, we live in a northern country. Here, we're in the Fraser Valley. We're in a rainforest, the Northwest rainforest. We don't get a lot of sunshine compared to, say, the southern states, Arizona or San Diego or anywhere like that. We are not in the Sun Belt. Do solar panels really work? And what if 97% of all the rare earths are owned and mined and processed by China? So replacing solar panels or electrical batteries for EVs, we're 100%, 97% dependent on China to supply us at their prices. Not too sure if we're quite ready for prime time yet. But listen, a lofty goal, how to reduce emissions. Well, right in our own backyard, we have natural gas. We have like one of the third largest reserves in the entire world. And natural gas, I'm putting all the links below here on everything that I source. Natural gas is between 50 to 60% less CO2 production than coal generated electrical generators. If we could just sell our natural gas to China and at a much cheaper price, by the way, and convert all of those coal generators to natural gas, we, BC, would have dropped the emissions in the world by 20%. Are you listening to this? Instead of being the worst polluters in the world, here in BC, selling all of our coal, we could be the ones that actually change the entire emissions of the world by converting to a much more efficient natural gas. Okay, it's just a thought. But at the end of the day, this is your true cost on the carbon taxes. When chicken farmers are paying $150,000 to raise chickens in carbon taxes, and all the fuel to transport it, to buy the grain, to dry the grain, to get it to market, and all of that, I don't know how much that increases our cost of poultry, folks. Is it 5%? Is it 10%? Is it 25%? Is it even more? Somebody please do the math and figure out the domino effect of all these taxes on taxes on taxes on taxes. What I do know, it is costing a lot, and we didn't actually help the environment. We hindered it by increasing our coal exports by 50%. Holy mackerel, folks, think of that. China consumes 58% of all the coal in the world last year. 58%, and we're the ones selling them a lot of that coal. So by the way, when you buy at Walmart, they say 93, 94% of all goods there are made in China. They're not made in Canada. They're not made in the States. Much tougher environmental rules. So I want you to picture this. Whenever you buy something like a kayak or anything at all from China, it is the most polluted, horrible carbon footprint product you can possibly buy. And if you bought from Canada or United States, under such strict environmental rules and such low emissions, it's more costly. So we're using our pocketbook to consume, not thinking of the environment. At the end of the day, please get involved. Hit the subscribe button here. Hit the like button. Please put on the notifications. Help me build building the Canadian dreams and restoring hope for our grandchildren so they don't have to move out of the province. So many of my clients say their children cannot even afford to rent here, let alone ever buy a home. So the kids have already moved to Alberta and now they're moving. So no parents want to have all of their kids gone. So we're in a tragedy here, folks. We've killed the inheritance of our children in this province. Let's fight hard to get it back. And it's called balanced budgets, reversing the debt, not increasing it. Accountable government management. Skill testing question for you. If you double government's expenditures on services, does that mean things go twice as fast? The answer might actually be opposite. The more bureaucracy you get by double, let's say the production, the approval levels go to 10%. It's 10 times harder to actually get anything done. The last subdivision I've done here, the first one I did in 83, 84, I felt was 6 steps, took 6 weeks. The last one, I call it 4,000 steps of counting the birds, the frogs, the skunks, the deer, all the animals on 14 acres to 4 years of approval, apparently some of the longest in the entire world to get a building permit or development of property, the longest in the world with more government bureaucracy than Carter has pills. Now that's a way to paralyze an industry. So many developers, so many builders are leaving for Alberta. So many of our businesses have given up here and taking their jobs with them to Alberta. And that's 70,000 people that left last year, 72,500. They're taking their equity, they're taking their cash. That's creating a vacuum in the province. We're not allowing any foreign investment to come in, which that's another big point. You know, what does $3 trillion worth of Chinese money coming in since the early mid-90s due to our province? They increased prices by 730%, making us the most expensive real estate in the entire world. And I'm not counting Singapore, it's the size of Vancouver, okay? In the entire world, apple to apple, we're the most expensive housing, the most expensive rents in the entire world. That is all because of our government policies. So there's your challenge. Get involved. Number 1, subscribe to this channel. Help me build it out. I will interview any one of you that has some really good knowledge to share. How can we save the province? How can we save Canada? Step in, be a soldier, go to war, and let's fight the battle. Bye-bye for now. Bill Coughlin signing off.